Hi everyone, this is Matt from tracyandmatt.co.uk, and here I am with a white box. For those of you that have seen more of my videos will know that white boxes typically mean new devices, and indeed anybody that's been watching the news and watching the site will know pretty much that it's going to be the new HTC One M8. Just going to do a quick, well, it's a little bit of an unboxing video, just to give you an idea of the accessories you're likely to get when it goes to retail. But obviously this is a white boxed review unit, so we have the charger, which is obviously UK 3-pin with USB socket on the back, and it is a 1.5 amp charger, so it does provide for a little bit more rapid charging, although it does support, the device does support Quick Charge 2.0, although the charge does not. Then we have a USB to micro USB sync charge cable, again nothing too unusual about that. And then finally headphones, or headset I should say, in the bag, which is, there we go. So we've got the red earbuds that we've seen on other devices previously, 4-pole 3.5mm jack on one end, the HTC headphones on the other, again these have been on other devices, and then the, there we go, inline microphone with the straightforward and simple push button for answering, hanging up your calls, pausing tracks when they're on playback, and so on. As I mentioned, obviously this isn't retail, so what you'll get in a retail pack, although in terms of accessories it's going to be similar, is going to be obviously much better presented. So let's push all those bits out of the way. You'll notice obviously this review unit comes in a .view case, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. I am going to remove it from the case. So, and we'll just put that to one side for just a second and take a look at the handset itself. And I will also remove the little screen protector. There we go. So, let's talk about the phone itself. So, a few differences, or quite a lot of differences between this and obviously its predecessor. So throughout the video I'm obviously going to be drawing comparisons between the two. So first and foremost, let's start at the top. On the front we have a 5-megapixel camera, they call it a selfie camera. It's an f2.0 and so quite sensitive, and also quite a wide angle camera. We'll have a look at that probably in just a moment as well. At the top and on the chin as well we do have the boom sound speakers. Again, these were first seen on the HTC One M7 from last year, but the boom sound speakers on this year's model have been improved. They've reworked the chamber design, and we are about 25% louder than the previous model. Display-wise, we have a 5-inch display, again up from last year's model. So 5-inch full HD display, so 1080 by 1920 pixels. Full HD. It's a 441 pixel per inch display there. In terms of the technology, it's somewhat undisclosed in terms of it's an IPS style display, but it is an LCD rather than AMOLED or anything like that. But the actual display technology, HTC are not putting on any of their spec sheets at the moment, certainly. But we do have the screen bonded to the LCD, and we have Gorilla Glass 3 protecting it at the front with the obviously the glass display, so that's pretty decent. What you will see is just how well the glass fits. I'm trying to get that angle just right. How well the glass fits around the edge of the bezel and the aluminium, and it really is gapless and edgeless in terms of how well it fits, and we are very close to the edge there. If I can sort of tip the angle again with the lighting, maybe you can make that out how close we are to the edge and how thin that bezel actually is. So take a look around the outside. To the left hand side on the top we have the SIM card tray. That is a nano SIM card tray, and it might look quite large. Indeed it is for a nano SIM card tray, and this obviously is a single SIM version of the device. A dual SIM version like to be available in other parts of the world, but certainly not here in the UK, more for the Asian market. But a nano SIM, 2 nano SIMs can actually fit in that space, but this is just the single here. There's a little hole there to actually eject that SIM card tray. Around the bottom We have the micro USB sync charge connector and the 3.5mm headphone jack. Again, you can see how the metal runs right up to the edges of those as well. This aluminium design runs all the way through. To the right hand side we have the up and down volume control, and then we have another little tray which is for the micro SD card. Now the micro SD card will support up to 128 gig micro SDs, which is very cool. But there is only a 16 gig of internal memory on these, on this indeed. There is a 32 gig model available, but it will not be sold here in Europe. It's Asian market again, but not at all here in Europe. So we are limited to the 16 gig model, but obviously we can install up to 128 gig micro SD memory card, so that's pretty cool. On the top, well, simply we really have just the power button, but also inside that power button we do have the IR blaster, which again was seen initially on the HTC One M7, but the IR blaster is still inside that button, which we'll hopefully prove for you in just a moment, but definitely inside there and not inside the other side. The button is all where it's at. On the back then, I suppose really is one of the things that's been talked about the most is this duo cam arrangement. So HTC call that a duo cam, or the top one certainly a duo cam, and the other one is an ultra pixel. So the same sensor as last year's model, 4 megapixel ultra pixel sensor, 4.1 technically, which obviously has the extremely large pixel size, so that it captures an awful lot of light, extremely light sensitive, and they're really pushing on the quality and size of the pixels. 300% more light sensitivity from the ultra pixels than on a standard phone camera, typical phone camera, or phone camera. And also we have that sensor at the top there again, which was something that really did attract a lot of attention when it came to all the leaks that we had over the last, I guess, couple of months really. But that duo cam is a camera that doesn't get used in its own right, so I can't use it to take pictures per se, but is used in conjunction with the ultra pixel camera to actually create depth information in the images that you shoot, and that is always on. And always captures that 3D depth information, or depth information rather than 3D per se, which we'll have a look at that in a moment as well, hopefully. There next to it we do have a dual LED flash, so you have both the sort of white and amber colouring to the flash, and also it's an intelligent flash, so we do adjust how much flash we use, so that it's not always at maximum intensity, it's a variable intensity as well. There's also a tiny little hole there, which is our additional microphone. The other microphone, or the front microphone, is actually in the grill there at the bottom. And also at the top grill we have a little LED, which obviously you can't see right now. There's a little LED in there as well to give you feedback in terms of notifications, and also tell us charge levels and so on. And the other little thing to that side is the sensor for ambient light and proximity. Also around the back, while we're sort of talking about the back, obviously it's got this gorgeous brushed finish, metal grey design or finish to it, which has very fine hairline striations on the back. Really just spanks of aluminium, which obviously it is, but it's immediately obvious that is a metal body that does wrap all the way around to the edges and butts even right the way up to the actual glass on the screen. It does feel really good quality in the hand, and when you pick it up, even if you're not really in the full know of what it is, and you pass it to other people, it just does really feel like a quality phone. It's quite solid, a little bit heavier than last year's model, about 15 or so grams heavier. It's 160 grams. Last year's model was about 146, I believe. So it's a little heavier, but really nothing to speak of. And that sort of metal finish on the back just gives it that sort of obviously cool feel as well. If you're not really into that brushed metal finish, there is an Arctic Silver, which is basically the same as the finish from last year's model, and also an Amber Gold, which is again quite smart, and I suspect going to be quite popular. So it's enough to really talking about, I guess, around the device, let me just talk about what's inside. In fact, while I'm doing that, I will just power on. In terms of what's inside, well, we have a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 chipset with a 2.3 gigahertz quad-core CPU. Other parts of the world, particularly the Asian market, will have a 2.5 gigahertz CPU. I don't know quite why we have the 2.3 here in Europe, but that's indeed what we do have. We have Android 4.4 with HTC Sense 6. We'll have a look at 6 a little bit more as well in a moment. We also have that blink feed, which is again was first featured in HTC Sense 5 or 5.5, and that has also been updated. RAM, we have 2 gig, and internal storage, this model and European models will be 16, and other parts of the world will have 32. We are LTE, so quad band and 4G capable. Sensors, accelerometer, proximity, ambient light, gyro and barometer. So it'd be useful if we can see some other apps that might actually expose that barometric information also. We have NFC, Bluetooth 4.0 with aptX, which is also pretty useful. Wi-Fi supporting 802.11b, G or AB, GN, and that new AC standard, which is again pretty good to have that included. DLNA support and HTC Connect. Micro USB connector on the bottom is 2.0, but it is also MHL compliant as well, so we can use it for HDMI output too, which is again nice to have that on the top. On the top we have that IR blaster, so we can use that for remote controlling TVs and TV set-top boxes and so on. That's pretty good. Boom sound speakers we've already mentioned. Forward-facing camera, again, I'm just quickly mentioning it again, is 5.0. On the back we have the ultra-pixel sensor, BSI sensor, with a 2 micro or nanometer sensor size, and it's 1/3 of an inch with a 28mm lens and an f2.0. Has HTC Image Chip 2, full HD video recording with HDR video, also supporting slow-mo modes and various other bits and pieces as well. Again, pretty cool. And the forward-facing camera also supports HDR and full HD video recording as well. Internal GPS antennas with GLONASS support, digital compass. And finally, let's mention the battery. That was possibly one of the weaker points of last year's HTC One M7, but HTC have hopefully addressed that with this model. We have a 2,600 mAh battery, which is pretty large, but also we do have some additional power saving features and power saving modes that can extend that standby time and indeed talk time, or standby time primarily, up to as much as 2 weeks, HTC say. So that's pretty cool to have that in the sort of extreme power saving mode. Talk time is said to be around the 20-hour mark, and 3G usage around the 20-hour mark as well. So one would expect that probably, fingers crossed, a couple of days worth of use while you're actually sort of out and about. So not bad. And when we come to sort of using it a bit more, we obviously just have received this. Once we've used it a bit more, we will be able to comment a bit more in terms of whether or not those claims on battery life are indeed founded. So let's just take a quick look and see one of the features that we do have on the HTC One M8 is the tap to turn on. So double tap allows us to actually turn on display, double tap again to turn off. HTC say, well, you know, primarily most people turn their display on maybe a couple of 100 times a day in some cases, just to see the time, oh, and I'll turn it back off again. Simple. So then, rather than using that power button or having to pick the device up, if it's just on the desk, you just want to see the time, you can just double tap the display to turn it on and turn it off. So that's kind of useful. Other features with that control as well, we can swipe down from the top and we can say call and then the name, and it will do a voice dial. And we can swipe in from the side, and it goes into blink feed. I can swipe in from the other side, which goes into the widgets, and I think I can swipe into the bottom, which just simply unlocks the phone, I think at the last open application. So in theory, if it was there, I think Yeah, there we go. So that it does have that features and capability as well. Display is really good. Obviously, I have had a lot of hands-on time with the new M8. Display is really exceptionally good. It was obviously quite a bit larger. It's out 5.5 inch. May not sound a lot larger than 4.7, but it is certainly noticeable. And we do have that really extreme viewing angles. It's not quite so clear to see just how extreme the viewing angles are on camera, and obviously we've got lighting in here. But I can tell you, you can get to some extreme angles and still see the display. Hopefully you can just make that out a bit. It just means that the display really does work extremely well, and even in quite bright lighting. I have got studio lighting here, under which you can obviously still see the display, and even if I put a lot of reflection on there, you can still pick out the display, so it works quite well. Being an LCD display, they do tend to work a bit better in sort of direct lighting. One thing I just really want to do is go and turn off that hotspot mode on Wi-Fi. So I can look at the blink feed. So I don't have anything configured here, but you kind of get the idea in terms of what we have. So we can actually scroll through and update. And one thing I actually probably should do is let's go and connect to a wireless network, so we can do a bit more. So there we are, connected to a wireless network. So we can obviously have other bits and pieces in blink feed. In terms of the features that you can actually pick up through blink feed as well, and services you can pick up have all been sort of updated as well. In terms of the other stuff, well, home screen wise it's very much the same as previously. We have multiple panels that we can add to. Obviously we have the weather, which is obviously everybody needs to know the weather, the Google search, and we have the Google applications in a folder, and obviously access to the Play Store. I haven't configured anything on this device really at this point, other than just sort of basically turning it on and skipping through the initial installation and setup. We'll just take a quick look at the browser, because obviously people want to know how well the browser responds on a device, so give you a little idea of how that works. So it's pretty responsive, obviously using broadband and Wi-Fi rather than using 4G. Coverage here is patchy at best. It works really well, loads up pretty quickly, as you can see, and with that Full HD display, a 5-inch Full HD display, text is really lovely and clear, nice and smooth around the fonts. Scrolling's also exceptionally good, so we can scroll through and read text quite nicely, and consume our media and text and video and all that kind of stuff quite nicely on that screen. Into the applications, so we've got obviously the standard stuff, and this is the standard stuff installed from the get-go by HTC. I haven't installed anything else apart from Quadrant, but we do have Zoe, which is going into a bit more detail with Zoe. So that was the feature that we added, HTC added last year. So we have Zoe moments. We've got the features for adding camera scenes and different video modes, burst shooting modes, and also sharing little video clips and events through Zoe. Again, that's probably something we'll look at in a bit more detail in another video. You've got your media and Google. There's a Fitbit application there. Twitter and Facebook pre-installed, the HTC guide, kid mode, and so on. Tips and help and tools. The only thing that I have installed is Quadrant, but we'll take a look at that later as well. Into settings. Settings have been updated. It's quite nice actually, how clean the settings menus are. So you've got your airplane mode, Wi-Fi modes, Bluetooth and all that kind of stuff, media output, and other settings that we can actually get into there, including NFC control. We can personalise, we can do our counter settings, display and gestures, boom sound, and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to about, we can go and take a look at software information. As you can see, Android 4.4.2 with HTC Sense 6.0, and the SDK API level is 6.17 on this particular handset. It's got date and time settings in there. One thing I will mention on personalisation, we do have different themes, so you'll notice that each of these themes has colour bar along the top. Really what that does, if I switch to this other theme, you'll notice that that theme continues throughout. Now blink feed is now changed, so the home screen has changed. And if I actually pop in and I'll drop down to go into the settings menu, settings colour scheme has changed to orange as well. Actually into the main settings menu, all the accents have been changed to orange as well. You can even change the font if you want to, change the font face to something that you prefer, or download additional fonts through the Google Play Store. And I will set that back to the default. And as you can see, that has switched back. So one thing we need to look at really is the camera. And there's two ways to get into the camera really. So we've got one nice feature is if I turn the display off and I rotate the device into that landscape orientation and I push a volume button, sorry, the volume up button, there we go. It launches straight into the camera application, so that's gesture based. So if you take the phone out and you want to take a picture, you turn it into the landscape orientation and go ahead and just take a picture. So we've got different camera modes. So we've got just a standard camera mode, and we've got access to all these settings, so we can change the scene selection, ISO settings, the exposure level, auto white balance, the various sort of effects modes as well that we've got in there, so we can pixelize and so on. And then we've got a full settings menu for image adjustments and crop and grids and geotagging and review durations, loads and loads of camera options, smile capture, what the volume control does and other bits and pieces, self-timer saturation, continuous shooting modes, and so on. The list kind of goes on. There's lots to play with there. One nice thing about that is if you want to mess around with these settings and you're always using the same settings, what you can actually do, I don't know if you saw that in there, come back to that in just a moment, is you do have the ability to save as camera. So in this list of camera types, we can save our own camera settings that we can drop into anytime we want to use those settings on that camera. So having a pre-selected mode. We have the video mode as well, so we can just record, obviously, video. We have the Zoe mode. I'll come back to that in just a second. The selfie mode is so that we can see there, obviously, forward-facing camera. You might be able to see just how wide angle that is. I'm just got that at arm's length, so it's a really nice wide angle lens. I think you've probably seen enough of my face. Go back to camera for a moment, but it is extremely wide angle. It captures good light sensitivity in there as well. Dual capture, I think this is quite useful, particularly for myself when I do some video work or I might go and interview somebody or something like that. So I can capture both the forward and rear cameras at the same time. I can also move around where I want that to be, and I can record that as video or take stills with that as well, which I think is really quite useful. A great little feature to actually have in there. I think it's extremely handy. Panoramic modes as well, which obviously for taking your panoramic photos and different bits and pieces. And the Zoe camera. The Zoe camera is pretty cool. So we can just press the button, which I'll do, take a picture, which was very quick, very simple, and it only made a simple little tick. But if I hold the button down, it's recording video for as long as I'm holding the button down. It also does a burst capture of the first, I think it's 3 or 4 seconds, something like that, 20 frames a second. But it captures. There you go. That's the focus there, focus setting. So it does capture the first I don't know, handful of frames, extremely quick succession as well. We can do zoom modes and bits and pieces as well. But that's your Zoe camera mode, and you can switch back to main camera. Auto flash in the corner, obviously we can change that mode as well to on, off and forced on. When it comes to the camera though, many of the features are in the editing and making use of the duo cam. So let's just delete this really boring image that I have there, and that really boring video, and that really boring image. And let's take a look at this this one that I took earlier. So that is a picture taken with the HTC One M8. And that's just a straightforward picture on the desk with some depth to our image. So there's a bit of depth of field there, obviously, with the little troll in the foreground, the screen, the keyboard, the mouse, and so on, further into the background. And I'm fairly close to the subject in the foreground. Let's give you an idea of things that we can do with that duocam, and some of these features are going to be expanded, I must say. Let's go into edit. And so in terms of the things we can do in editing, unfocus is one of them, and I think this is a pretty cool feature for really making the most of those portrait photos. So I can tap to refocus on the little troll, and hopefully you'll see that the background has been really blurred out. A nice bokeh effect, or bokeh if you like, to actually really blur the background out. But maybe I have something else in the background I'd prefer to focus on, and I can change the focus to something in the background. Maybe I want to focus on that over there, I want to focus on the screen that's up there. Maybe I've got multiple subjects. I've got somebody standing in the foreground, I've got somebody standing in the background. I might choose to change my focus. So it means that we can go back to our images, and because it's captured in just one shot, that's just one photo. Refocus has been added to other cameras, not just phones, but other cameras over the years, but they tend to need around 5 or so, maybe more, photos taken at different depths or different depths of field, and then to kind of stack together to actually provide that. And you'll notice how quickly this is actually shifting its focus. It's maybe, you know, just under a second probably to actually do that. And again, as I say, because it's taken with one picture, it's pretty seamless. And every image that you shoot with the duo camera on the back will have that depth of field information. Other features that we've got, and just go back, so we don't maybe want to do the refocus, we can do foregrounder. So we've got different foreground modes. So objects in the foreground are now in colour, and in the background it changed to this sort of sketch style, which obviously if we didn't have this gradual move into the background, it would be a bit more perhaps impressive. Then we've got the zoom blur, so objects in the foreground again, nice and in focus. Other stuff really zoom blurred out. Cartoonify the background, it's not a great shot for that. And colorize, again, we're dropping out the colour in the background and just leaving the colour of troll. So nice little creative effects available there as well. One of the other ones I quite like is the Dimension Plus. So that allows us, particularly with some of these shots, to actually warp. If I move the device around, it's like I'm warping to some degree. I'm having an effect, warping around that image. If I can actually do it with my finger as well, I'll just give you an idea of some of the stuff that you can do. But that's kind of a cool feature, and I might sort of position it like so, and I can actually save it in that setting. It just gives us, again, the ability to alter the perspective of the photo a little bit more. It's a bit like a tilt shift type of affair. We've got seasons mode. Again, if you want to do stuff like that and be creative and add things like that to your pictures, stickers and things like that. Again, another feature here, copy and paste, which I can't show you because I don't have loads and loads of photos, but because we do have that depth information, we know that the troll is in the foreground and he is separated from the background by virtue of the fact that we have this depth information in the photo. So I could copy the troll from this picture and place it into another picture. Probably a bit more useful to do that when you have people in portraits and putting them into landscapes and things like that, rather than little trolls, but you kind of get the idea. There are other filters, again, the sort of things that you come to expect, the standard colour filters and bits and pieces there as well, different feature effects. Then you've got crop modes to touch up so that you can change the anti-shine and red eye removal on eye enhancement and all that kind of stuff. So loads and loads of features there, and tons to play around with. And then we can get creative with, once we have our footage, we can actually get creative with these different Zoe modes. Well, I don't want to actually go and do that now. Well, there you go, that's something else that we will need to come back to look at in a bit more detail. So the other thing that we had in the box, now whether or not the case, the dot view case, comes as standard with every purchased HTC One M8, I doubt. It's very unlikely, but nevertheless we do have one with ours. Now HTC have created the case for a perfect fit, and it does turn the display on and off as we open and close it, which other devices do, not too unusual. One thing that's very cool about the top view case, and makes me really want to use the case, is that we do have this feature of being able to see through the case. So the touchscreen works through the case, so I can double tap to see the time and a little weather and temperature. If there were notifications on the screen, they would come up as well. If I'd had any missed calls, that kind of stuff, that comes up. Incoming calls are displayed. I can swipe down from the top and it says, who do I want to call? So you can see that with that display. So I can actually make the hands-free call without turning the display on or opening the case.
No matches found. Please say that again.
I won't bother. Now one thing you might want to see
No match.
is open the fridge door. And maybe you can just see what's happening there. So it's just turning on the display, but only illuminating parts of it. One thing that's also in here, which perhaps you can't make out, is although it's perforated, they aren't actually holes. There is actually like a slightly translucent, etched almost layer in there as well, so that the dots show up a bit better rather than just being straightforward holes. There are holes at the top and the bottom, which is why you can perhaps see a bit of difference there on display, and obviously a cutout for the camera, but the holes there are to accommodate the loudspeaker. So that's a nice feature, I really like that. These dot view cases come in 5 different colours, orange, reddish, bluish, greenish. Obviously they have better colour names than that, but being a man, they're just colours. And obviously this is the grey, or if you don't really want the dot view case, there are just some standard cases without that perforated front, which also do still turn the display on and off. And then there's the dual double dipped cases as well, and some other bits and pieces. So I think it's enough talking for one video. Goodness knows how long we've been so far, so we'll probably call it a day just there. And then we'll come back with some other videos with some other features, some of the other features in a bit more detail, because obviously we blitzed through some of this and didn't got quite so much detail on some of the other little features in there as well. So we'll come back to those. Oh, I guess before I sum up, just take it back out of the case. You may want to see the difference between HTC One M8 and the HTC One M7. So we are a bit larger, but not a lot. Really, if I put them down both there, so we're about 10mm taller and only a few millimeters wider, and very similar. I think they're virtually the same. I think it's about a tenth of a millimeter difference in the thickness of the two devices. Obviously the new model has the aluminium chassis that wraps all the way around, whereas the last year's model had the polycarbonate, and then we have the 5-inch display on the new model versus the old, and we're slightly heavier. Obviously quite different in terms of performance and technology and other stuff that's in there. So that has been not such a quick look at the new HTC One M8. I'm going to do some more videos with some of the other features, look at HTC Sense 6.0 in a bit more detail, and benchmarks and some other bits and pieces. If you want to follow us on Twitter, please do so, twitter.com/TracyandMatt or facebook.com/TracyandMatt.co.uk. Google Plus, you can find me. I'm plus Matt Davis and the number 1, MattDavis and the number 1, Matt Davis 1, or via our YouTube channel, which is Leo D, Leo DEE, and plus LEOD on Google Plus as well, for sort of like the main sites page, where you can see not just me but other members of the team posting their stuff as well. If you want to ask us any questions, please do so. Do our best to answer your questions about the HTC One M8 and compare it to anything else that you'd like us to, or if you want to see particular photos or features, please let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate you. So that's been the HTC One M8. I'll be back soon with some more videos and reviews on tracyandmatt.co.uk, but for now, thanks for watching.